or they're not counted as Christians. We have a system in which integrity is punished and deceit is rewarded. And we've been upset by recent events in which Unitarians have been turned down from state-funded Christian schools in this town. But we have to be very clear. We have to be very clear. Are we saying Unitarians should be let into this school because we're saying Unitarians are really Christians? Therefore, we should be let into Christian schools. Are we saying the system is okay as long as we're benefiting from it? Are we saying we don't want Unitarians to be discriminated against, but we're okay if Muslims and Hindus and Sikhs and atheists aren't allowed into Christian schools, are discriminated against? Or are we saying there's something fundamentally wrong with the system? Are we saying that discrimination by state-funded faith schools is wrong? It seems to me that the system is fundamentally corrupt. And there's a basic matter of fairness and justice here, I think. If something is funded by all, or majority funded by all, it should be available to all, or available to those who need it. Every single one of us is paying taxes to support institutions that are only available to some of us. And would we accept this in any other sphere of life? Imagine this, imagine we started a hospital here, start Bank Street Hospital, and we get doctors in and we raise a bit of money, and then the state steps in and says, we will fund 90% of your costs. You need to do a bit of fundraising, but we will fund 90% of your costs. And we become the best hospital in Bolton. We have the best doctors, the best nurses, the best equipment, the best facilities. But this is a hospital just for Unitarians. Just for Unitarians. So if someone comes into A&E with a broken arm, the first thing we ask is, what church do you go to? Can you prove you're a Unitarian? And if they can't prove they're a Unitarian, we turn them away. We turn away the sick, the injured and the dying, unless they're of our religion. If we wouldn't accept that with a hospital, why do we accept it with a school? The faith school system seems unjust, encourages dishonesty, encourages segregation on race, on class, and on religion. But I think it's important not to say simply we want to abolish faith schools, because that becomes a defensive argument. If someone says, I want to abolish your school, the first reaction somebody's going to have is defensive, and that's not going to be a constructive conversation. I don't want to say, let's abolish faith schools. As I say, I went to a faith school, and there were many good things about it. But I think there are specific things where it's possible to argue what is fair and what is not fair. I think the main thing is admissions. Admissions based on religion of pupils must be not discriminating against any religion. But I want to speak specifically from a Christian point of view now. Because some will say, how can we keep our Christian ethos if we don't discriminate in favour of Christian pupils? That's the argument. How can we have a Christian ethos if we don't discriminate in favour of Christian pupils? And my response to that is, how can you have a Christian ethos if you do discriminate? Did Jesus teach that we should always favour our own people? That we are a tribe, that we should want what's best for our tribe, for our religion, for our people, and want to exclude the rest? Or did Jesus teach to invite all to the table? Jesus said, as we've read, when you give a dinner party, do not invite your friends or your relatives or your rich neighbours, but invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, and the blind. Is it too much to think that would apply as a principle to Christian schools? Can we not imagine Jesus saying, when you start a school, do not invite the rich families, do not invite the families from people of your own religion. When you start a school, invite the poorest families, the most troubled children, the children with special needs, the children with disabilities. Invite those most in need to your school. Is that stretching the ethos of Jesus in an unnatural way? I don't think it is. Isn't that a Christian admissions policy? Isn't that a school with a Christian ethos? The only admissions policy I can imagine being Christian is one that discriminates in favour of the poorest. And if you go back to the image of a hospital, there is a great tradition of Christians starting hospitals. There is a great tradition of that, but the hospital is not only for people of our own religion, it's service to the world. And so there are hospitals with foundations that are Christian, and there can be schools with foundations that are Christian. But that ethos needs to be the ethos of serving the world, not the ethos of having the best for our own. Do you know there was a time when, I can't remember the exact details of this, but there was a time when something like a third of all schools in Bolton were started by members of this chapel. And of those schools, they were the only schools in Bolton that were non-sectarian, that were for everyone. Not Methodist schools for Methodists and Catholic schools for Catholics and Jewish schools for Jews, but the schools Unitarians started were always for everyone. And the only Unitarian school that is left in this country, because we generally gave them back to the state, is Bank School in Atherton, connected to Bank Chapel. And that is a school with the Unitarian foundation, but a school that has an admissions policy and always has, that is for all people, for all pupils, for all families in that area. I think the time has come for us to stand up for the principle of non-sectarian education again, that deep, historic Unitarian principle of non-sectarian education. And to say, as people of faith, we believe good education should be for all, and that we are against faith discrimination in schools. May it be so.